My name is Sandeep Srinath. This is an incident that happened about a year ago after I got my ICWA intermediate results. So on a Friday night we decided to go for a party in celebration of my clearing my intermediate. And we were about 10, 12 of us, and we went on about 4 or 5 bikes. But after the party, it was around 12:30 when we came out and we decided to go home. There was a bit of a confusion of who was going with whom, and finally I and a friend of mine were left behind on MG Road to fend for ourselves. We thought of, both of us were from the same locality, so we took an auto rickshaw. We stopped an auto rickshaw and there was another person sitting in it other than driver. We asked the driver, he said it was just a friend and we could go in it. Halfway home, he stopped the auto rickshaw and pointed a knife at us and demanded all the cash we had and a watch. We had no other alternative, so we just gave it, and we thought we won't get another lift now, we'll have to walk back home. But the auto rickshaw driver said no problem, that he'll drop us back home, and we went with him. It may sound funny, but it really happened, because he asked us where our homes were, and we said it was 3 km from the place where it happened, and he said he's going to drop us. We said fine, and we went. The next day morning in college, all of us had a big argument of who was to blame, like with whom we should have gone and all that stuff. But the bottom line was that thanks to the auto rickshaw driver, I got a new watch.
I'm Sangeeta Chawla. April 1984. We were moving with the times. Everything was new. We had a new house, a new refrigerator, a new TV, and also a new ambassador car. The only problem was that it had 3 owners before us. We were the 4th. Thank God for the good things. We, that is our family, planned a trip to Tirupati. We decided to drive down. My father, who had never driven a car before, decided that he'd master the art of driving in just 1 day. Not 1 month, not 3 months, but 1 day. And that too to a single day prior to our departure. His driving class lasted for just 1 hour. He believed he had learned the art of driving. I stand corrected. Not learned, but mastered. That weekend, we set out for the abode of Lord Venkateshwara. We reached safely and in a good while finished our darshan. Everything went on smoothly. In the evening, we set out on a return journey to Bangalore at around 6:30 p.m. We were having a great time driving downhill, when suddenly, waiting at the 18th hairpin bend was disaster. First the lights failed and then the brakes. There was total chaos. My father tried all he could. He repeatedly tried to press the brakes, but nothing happened. As time passed, our hopes of survival diminished. The car was taking sharp turns. With each turn and each curve, our hopes lessened. My sister and I, who were almost crying, were pacified by my mother, who asked my dad to try and stop the car. Somehow. My brother insisted that we all jump out of the car. Only thing, it was not practical at 60 kilometers per hour. Half an hour passed, and then my father asked us to say our prayers, our last prayers. But at the bottom of our hearts, we had just a little hope that we could make it. We had not reached the plains as yet. We were nearing the plains after covering almost 30 kilometers downhill. The car came to an abrupt halt. What had happened? Were the brakes working again? Was the car alright? Was everything fine? Was there some force working behind this? All of us got out of the car to find out. What saved us was the fact that the fuel tank had sprung a leak and there was absolutely no fuel. After this nerve-wracking incident, it felt great to live. Thank God. Thank Lord Venkateshwara.
My name is Sanjay Panika. Since my father is in the Air Force, I've grown up with planes, and being a pilot was certainly one of the priorities in life. But I didn't get very far along that road. What I did do was learn how to pilot a glider. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think in the life of a pilot, any pilot, the most important day would be that day when he takes his first solo flight. That is, when he takes the plane out on his own. I had done about 22 flights before my instructor decided that it was time that I could do a solo. I think I can take it solo from here. When I relate to you the incident that happened, it will remain etched on the canvas of my memory forever. I arrived at the airport on time. My batch mates, my cadet mates, they helped me strap myself into my seat. I checked out the instruments on my instrument panel. I set the altimeter at the right level. Canopy was closed and the glider was rolled out onto the tarmac. The tow cable fixed and I was all set. I gave the thumbs up signal and was pulled out on the track. As soon as I started off in the air. When I reached a height of about 6,300 feet, I called cut. The cable was cut and I was on my own. So this is how it finally felt to be solo. There was nothing else with me. The sky above me, the sea under me, and nothing else. I think the first feeling was of total exhilaration. But soon the doubts started to creep in. Would I be able to handle this flight? Would I be able to take this flight, bring the glider back to ground? My glide path was something of an eclipse, it's an elliptical path. And as I took the first bank, as I banked the glider left, a wind thermal hit me. Now, wind thermal is a sudden gust of wind that is at that height in the atmosphere. And that lifted the glider up a little bit. And I did the one thing, at that moment I did the one thing that I was strictly prohibited from doing. I attempted to pull the glider into a loop. Now, loop is something the glider comes up like this, the plane comes down again. So as I got up into the air, I came up top, I felt the gravity push me into the seat. And because of the force of gravity, for that one moment, I lost focus. I couldn't focus properly. It's a fraction of a second. But in that fraction of a second, I lost control of the glider. I was up here someplace, and as I started coming down, I lost control. The glider went into a spiral, started coming down fast. My God, I think I was ice cold. I didn't feel a thing. I know I didn't feel a thing. I couldn't feel a thing. All I could do was hold on to my joystick, pull it up, and start praying that the nose came up. The nose did come up, but after an eternity. And I knew it was an eternity because every single moment seems to stretch for a lifetime. And how it stretched. But slowly but surely, the nose came up. The nose came up slowly. I saw the runway very, very close to me. Somehow or the other, I managed to bring the glider back onto the glide path and landed the glider. I was shaking like a leaf, soaked through with sweat totally and completely. I didn't have the strength to, take out the straps and stand on my feet after that. I was so terrified. In this one flight, which seemed to me like a lifetime, I was told it lasted just about 8 minutes and 17 seconds. This one flight, I think I must have gone through the range of emotions, from the heights of pleasure, total ecstasy, to complete and absolute terror. I was terrified. I can never forget that flight. Thank you.
Good evening, friends. I'm Seema Sequera. I'd like to begin by saying this is one of my memorable events, but not my most memorable event. It was the month of June 1992. My college, St. Agnes College, was abuzz with activity. The reason for this being the ongoing college elections. I decided I would stand for the post of the Western Music Secretary. Well, besides me, there were 3 other candidates who were supposed to stand for the same post of the Western Music Secretary. So, because of this, our principal decided that we would have to come up on stage the next day and give a speech in front of 1,000 students, mind you, 1,000 students. And the best one, she said, would be elected. So began the nightmare for me. 1,000 students and a speech. I said, no way. I had never made a speech all my life, and I was really, worried about it. I almost ran back to the Princi's office and I said I'll withdraw my nomination. But my friends intervened at the right moment and said, nothing doing, Seema. You're going to make it. You're going to prove yourself. So they really helped me out and they helped me draft a short and a very sweet speech. Well, the next day at 12 o'clock, we gathered in the auditorium. 1,000 students in the auditorium and 4 of us on the stage. My turn was number 1. I said, okay. I was shitting bricks, my friends, let me tell you that. And then I said, My friends told me later that I looked as if I was going to the guillotine. But I was really shivering, let me tell you. But that was before my speech began. But once my speech began, I was totally different. But let me tell you how the speech went. This was the gist of my speech. Music, my friends, speaks louder than words. At least for me it does. Ever since I was this little, music has been my passion, and the guitar, my very best friend. I have already participated in a number of intercollegiate competitions and have won a number of laurels for this college. But with your support, my friends, I assure you we can do our very best. But I need your support for that, because united we stand and divided we fall. I would not like to make any empty promises, but I assure you, if elected, I will try and do my very best. The decision now, my friends, is in your hands and not in mine. So at the end of the speech, do you believe what I did? This is what I did. Que sera, sera, whatever will be, will be. The future is not ours to see. Que sera, sera. What will be, will be. And believe it or not, my friends, I won a 700 out of 1,000 votes. I was ecstatic, let me tell you. I was elected for the post of the Western Music Secretary. But I would like to add something to this. It was not so much because of my speech that I won this post, but because of the undying support of my friends. I shall always remain grateful to them. Thank you.
Hello everybody, I'm Siddharth Viswanathan. Is there anybody out here who's ever been in a lockup? I don't see any raised hands, so I think the answer is no. Well, you're just looking at a person who spent 11 hours in a lockup and a police custody. It's not funny, it was exciting, it was a good experience. This happened in Delhi when I studied in Delhi, and this was the height of the Mandal riots. That was in 1990. And we, all of us, the students of Delhi, we were literally boycotting classes, and we were just having a good time. Good time in the sense we were blocking roads. You know, we were just singing slogans and songs. And, you know, literally, we brought down the VPC government. I'm proud of that. Well, so this place called Kranti Chowk, we renamed it Kranti Chowk. This is at the crossroads of the Hindu College and Stephens in Delhi, and we used to meet there almost every. We includes the students from all over Delhi. We have 52 colleges in Delhi University. All of us converge there. Not all of us, most of us. At least around 500 to 600 every day. And we used to decide the POA, the plan of action for the next day. Like which road do we block, and what do we do. So one such day, this was the 23rd of August. I still remember. It was 4 o'clock. And we were all at our level best, and we were blocking the road. And then the cops came in, and the cops were always around us. They didn't like it. They told us, you better move. You're really creating a lot of problems for a lot of people. Obviously, I mean, it felt on. It didn't. Nobody listened to him, and we were still yeah, we won't move, and down VP sing. Well. Then we saw the fire tenders moving in. We should have guessed that this was the time to run away. But then again, obstinate fools that we stayed on. It's all of a sudden there was gushes of water, water everywhere. Well, and we were all thrown back. Me too. I mean, we were all of us, big gang of us. We were all on the road. We didn't know what hit us like. And then again, we were wet, and we should have been better sense didn't prevail still, because we didn't get up and move away. The cops still told us, get out of this place. We said no, down VPC. Well, then came the hurting part, the lathi charge. Well, as soon as the cops started rushing at us with the lathis, the quicker ones, they ran for the lives. The not so quick ones stayed back. And we got beaten. I mean, we didn't get beaten that badly. Well, because maybe a lot of people were on me, so I didn't know what happened. And so we were all garroted to the local. There was a police station, Tilak Nagar police station. We were around 45 of us, and we were taken to this cell. It was say 1/3 the size of this room. And it was when we didn't know what was happening to us when we were, it was also exciting. We were all wet first of all. We didn't know what, and we didn't know. I just had one friend of mine, just one person in that whole gang whom I knew before. She was my classmate. The rest were all strangers and all looked, like totally, what's happening? And so when we went in there, the first 5 minutes we were all scared. We didn't know. We were like, oh God, what's going to happen? And then suddenly somebody said, VP Singh is to blame. We all took off. Down VP Singh, we were in the cell, the swords, and then it started off that way. Then the cops came and told us, you better shut up, and things like that. We said, no way, why don't you shut up? And since we were in the cell, we were 45, it was a big cell, the boys and girls, he couldn't say much, and he said, yeah, because this was an everyday case. Everyday guys, students were being put into these cells, lockups for preventive custody. This happened, and then as the night progressed, we were there the whole night, 11 hours. It was a nice experience. We got to know each other. We got introduced in a different manner. All of us sitting around the cell, not like how we got introduced here. We're sitting around in a circle, and one by one we stand up and say, "I hit VP Singh and I'm Siddharth." Something like that. It was always, Mandal down. It was always that. And then we came up with some real neat slogans. We were singing all the night and cracking jokes and relating personal incidents. Well, all this, we didn't know what, the next day around 7 o'clock, it was 7 o'clock and we just realized, oh God, it's sunlight, it's daylight, and the whole day, the night had passed without food nor water. We were not even thirsty. It was so, I don't know, you might find it hard to believe, but the mood was so upbeat out there. We had a great time. And when we came out of the cell, we were totally different, we all had come together and we're so close, and even today, when I go back to Delhi, I have those friends, the new friends that I made. We are so close, like we are, lock-up mates, like cellmates. Thank you.
I'm S. Shivakumar. I still can't believe the day when I got the response and support from my friends for making him. For my introductory speech. That day was indeed memorable. But I still feel that the time one spends with one's family are memorable. There are many memorable events in my family which all involves in my life. Sorry.
We mature and we want to do things on our own, for us and for others too. Now coming to a basic question. We are born into a family. Our parents look after us, educate us. But for what? My answer is so that someday we are self-sufficient and over and above that we can take care of the family. I'm sure you might have guessed by now what I'm trying to drive at. Which day can be more important for a man than the day he earns his first money? Yes friends, for me, the most important and the most memorable day in my life till date was September 5, 1992. It was that day I got an appointment letter, my first job. I got an offer from HCL Hewlett Packard Limited to join there as a customer engineer trainee. I was literally in the seventh heaven. It was an ecstatic feeling for me, and from that particular day I was a different man, an individual on my own. I was financially independent. Then jokingly something happened to me, and jokingly with a mocking ring in my voice, I approached my father and told him, "Well, old man, you have taken good care of me all these days. I thank you for that and I really appreciate it. But see this, I weighed my appointment letter at him. It says it's high time he moved along and let the junior take over all duties and responsibilities." Well, at that moment my father did not say anything. He only made a vain attempt to smile. But believe me, his eyes really spoke a lot. I could sense what my father was going through. I made a mistake there. Somewhere I touched a discordant note of sorts. But luckily for me, the infectious feeling that was passing right through my family saw to it that sense of uneasiness and misunderstanding that had been created between me and my father was not there. And I found myself back again on cloud 9. Since then, whenever I traverse down the memory lane, this is the day I muse over most. My cup of joy really did overflow on September 5, 1990. Thank you.
Friends, my name is Suraj. It was a fall of a lifetime. I plunged 18 feet into the concrete floor, and at the end of it, I survived is a good cause for me to celebrate and to remain in my memory as an unforgettable one. This incident relates back to 1983 when I was a class 5 student. I and my friends were back to school after winter vacation. The first couple of days is usually spent relating the the holidays we had, the movies we had seen, the trips undertaken by us, and all sort of other things which is meant to be shared by friends. Of course, it's a different matter that we used to get caught in class with talking too much, and we used to be suitably rewarded by our teachers. This, however, didn't deter us from resuming our session after some time. This talk session used to get carried over during lunchtime and also in the subsequent break we have. On one such occasion, I and my friends were seated on the parapet wall of the first floor in our school building, and we were relating the things which happened, the tours undertaken by us during the holiday. Deepak Bhatt, a friend of mine, was relating a story, rather the adventures undertaken by him during the vacation. He had gone to the Malamura Dam, which was famous for the rope bridge across the dam. Deepak later on went on to explain the nuances of the dam. He said that the rope bridge was entirely made up of wood and rope, rather logs and rope tied together in a forest base, and the rope in a crisscross manner on the sides for the support. The gaps between the logs, though small, were big enough for the eyes to ignore, given the gushing water below. A small step forward would mean total vibration of the bridge, and this increased gradually as one moves forward and was maximum at the center of the bridge. Few logs creaked and few others shifted as one stepped on it, and naturally one will at least miss a heartbeat or two in case he doesn't have a minor heart attack. As I was listening to this with great interest and utmost concentration, something made me to look back and to look down. No, I didn't see my school building, school compound, the students running around out there, the familiar banyan tree, nothing. Instead, I saw the gushing water of the Malamura Dam, the swinging, or the rather so swaying rope bridge, and a gaping hole in the middle of it. Then complete blackout. The next thing I remember was my face being wet, and the faces of my principal, teachers, and other fellow students while I was lying on the principal's desk. I also found out when I got up that I had few bruises and specks of blood all over my body. In a couple of minutes, I found my parents in front of me, and they too were quite relieved to find me in a crying shape, because some of my friends had related to my parents that Suraj had fallen from the first floor and he's not talking. So they were happy that I was in a crying state. I was put in the car by my parents and we went on to the hospital. On examination, it was found that nothing serious had happened to me except a hairline fracture in my arm and few bruises here and there. The doctor advised me a week's rest, and he also told me that the reason why I am here today, rather why I survived, was that as I went towards my crash landing, I blacked out totally, and in this process my muscles weren't stiff, so this took away most of the impact on the force of the impact. I got discharged from the hospital the same day itself, and as soon as I went home, I found my friends out there. For the next 1 week, I had streams of visitors for me, ranging from my principal to the classmates. Even long after the incident, people still remember me as a guy who fell from the top. Even if I go to Cochin today, people say that, oh, you are the one who fell from the top. People the world over survive air crashes, survive floods, survive earthquakes, and they carry the legend in their t-shirts. This incident is no less an incredible one for me, that I too have a t-shirt with the legend, I survived the nosedive of 1983. Thank you.
I am Trivikram. I have been asked to talk about the most memorable incident in my life. What is a memorable incident? As one grows older, our priorities change and our perceptions change, as a result of which what constitutes a memorable event today after a period of time that will appear to be perfectly ordinary. But a certain incident has remained etched in my memory, and I am going to share that experience with you all. I had been to my native village, and I am going to narrate that experience to you. Before I had been there, whenever I was asked by people about the origins of my family, I used to tell them mechanically that our family came from Andhra, but we are domiciled in Karnataka. So for all practical purposes, I was and I am a Kannadiga. But still deep inside there was a vacuum. I really wanted to really belong to a place. And that vacuum was filled only when I visited my native village. This village is called Sonna, and from this our family name has been derived. It is deep in the hinterland of Andhra Pradesh. It is said that half the romance of travel is in the journey, and the same happened with me too. On our way, the bus in which we were traveling broke down, and we had to complete the rest of our journey partly on foot and partly in a bullock cart. That was the first time I ever travelled in a bullock cart, and believe me, it was a literally and metaphorically very moving experience. Finally, we reached our destination. We were home, well and truly home. The village was an ordinary village. It was a few rows of houses, some with thatched roofs and some with pakka roofs. You can say it was just an ordinary nondescript Indian village. But for me, this village held a different meaning. It had a unique identity for me. Because this was a place where my ancestors had lived, they had made their lives and had passed on their values and traditions to the next generation. This was the place from which my ancestors had set out to make a better life for themselves, and indeed they had been very successful in their endeavor. And this was the place to which I could trace my roots to a tangible extent. Since my ancestors had migrated from that place a long time ago, we didn't have any property there. So we were hosted by a family to which we traced a distant relation. At first they welcomed us with some reservations. After all, we were a family from big bad city. But when they discovered that we shared much more than a common surname, all their initial hesitation vanished, and we had a really nice time there. We stayed there for 5 days, and every day in the morning I used to go to the paddy fields along with my distant cousins. We could hardly speak each other's languages, but by the time we came back, I had learned a smattering of Telugu, and I had in turn taught them a few sentences in Kannada. The days passed very quickly, and soon it was time to go back to where we had come from, the impersonal city. But then that's the way of life we had chosen for us. Before we started our journey, I went off all by myself. I went for a walk in the fields so that I could treasure and cherish whatever I was seeing within myself. And after we got back to the city, I got the photographic rolls developed, and sadly not a single good print was obtained. All the better, I thought, I consoled myself. Because photographs may fade, they may warp, we might throw them into corners and they might gather dust. But the memories which I have inside me, I will cherish them as long as I am alive. Thank you.
Shivakumar. I'm S. Shivakumar. I couldn't believe the response I got from my friends, classmates for my introductory speech. That day was memorable, but I also feel that all the days one spends with one's parents are memorable. Unfortunately, we realize that only when we are separated from them, as we are now. There were many memorable incidents even in my life. I'm going to speak on a function conducted by us. The day was September 2nd. An auspicious day, according to the Pandits, for conducting a housewarming ceremony or the Graha Pravesham. But the contractor didn't think so. We were annoyed by his laxity in finishing the work. The entire responsibility of managing the contractor fell on me. I got the contractor and his men work day and night to finish the work. And finally they handed us the house 80% complete. In their urgency to finish the work, they did everything upside down. The window grills were fitted all upside down, and we couldn't help laughing at our own house and on the work done by the contractor. The problem with the contractor was not the only one we faced before the function. It appeared as if many problems had been waiting all these days to put up a good show on the so-called auspicious day. On the auspicious day, we were all attired up formally to face the first problem in the form of a jet pump failure. The water from the well had to get into the overhead tank. To get into overhead tank at any cost. Breakfast or lunch couldn't be served without water. Well, as the chanting of the mantras was going on, I was busy meddling with the motor, hoping for some miracle to happen. It did happen. And when it happened, I was overjoyed. Maybe the motor realized the solemnity of the occasion and let the water pass through. Perhaps it let water pass through out of pity for us. We also faced problems with the cooks. One of them didn't turn up and my uncle had to take his place. As the relatives and friends started pouring in, I joined my sister on the reception committee. She was trying her level best to put on a smiling face. I joined her. I tried my best to recognize the maximum. A few were a real test for my memory power. But then some relatives created a few embarrassing moments for me. I couldn't recognize them. And they came to me and asked, "Do you recognize me?" And I just cut a blank face. And that really embarrassed me. Even the camera also posed a problem on that day. Perhaps it couldn't bear to see us with our problems. Once the function was over, the camera came to its normal position. Came to normality. At the end of the function, I classified the relatives who came into two categories: those who had complimented us on our achievement of building the house, and those who found fault with us in the building plan. Some of those also also took down the address of the contractor from us. God knows what happened to their houses. Indeed, finally, I would like to say that owning a house is a dream of a middle class person, and a dream which came true to us. Indeed, the day September 2nd, the day of Graha Pravesham, or I would rather put it this way, the Problemo Pravesham was the memorable day in my life. Thank you.
Banerjee. I am going to tell you about my most wonderful night. Now don't look for juicy details because I call it night because the incident happened during the night. I recall it happened last year during Holi. I was doing my fourth shift. Two of my relievers did not turn up. It was a night shift. So I was dead tired. I asked my technician, please be more careful. I am doing my fourth shift and I won't be able to discharge my duty that way. At around 2 o'clock, I was feeling a bit drowsy and the phone rang. I just picked it up. Hello. He said, boss, come quickly, there's a problem. I ran. And when I reached there, it took me about 2 or 3 minutes. I found the whole area was covered by smoke. I saw, what happened? I went, the technician was nowhere to be found. There was a fire somewhere. Because if you see smoke, there has to be fire. So I tried to locate the where the smoke was coming from. Then, in the meantime, my technician came. He said, Saab, one of our UPS system has caught fire. I immediately went to the system. I tried to put off the main switch, but the switch was not getting off. I tried again. I told that fellow, you go, you call the fire brigade. We cannot do anything. The main switch is not getting off. We cannot use the extinguisher. He went. I again kept on trying with the switch. In the meantime, he came back. Okay, boss, I have phoned the fire brigade. I asked him, okay, you do like this, you tell the manager. I was telling him, I was looking at the equipment. And I suddenly looked, there was no response. That fellow had collapsed. It was very difficult to breathe out there. I was also feeling the suffocation. Now what to do? There was a fire. The whole plant was in danger. This fellow was lying down. I was also not feeling well. So I did the most sensible thing out there. I picked it up. He was some 60 kg of weight. First I picked him up, he fell down. I said, this is not going to do. I picked him up, put it on my shoulder, and then I went. The entrance was around 400 to 500 meters.
I reached the control room. There were many people were out there. I told them, please call the ambulance. Take this person to the hospital. I have some urgent work. In the meantime, the fire department has come. The main thing in any fire we have to do, we have to put off the main switch. We have to put off the main fire. Without that, you cannot fire. You cannot use the extinguisher. You won't be able to extinguish the fire. So again, I put on the oxygen mask. There was only one oxygen mask. I had to go in because I was familiar with the area. I had to again go in. I went in. Again, I tried with the switch. It was not operating. So I went. I did a most logical thing. I tripped the system. There is something. You put off the control supply, you can trip it. So I tripped the system. Then I used CO2, and after around 2 or 3 minutes, I could put off my fire. Then I did the normal things like preparing the fire report, then preparing the failure analysis report. I informed my superior. Then the whole night was spent in so many people coming, wanted to see where the fire was. So you have to go, you have to tell them there was a fire. Then how did you come to know? The whole story went on and went on. Finally, it went around in 2 o'clock the fire caught. In 7 o'clock my shift was going to be over. Again my reliever didn't come, I have to do another shift. The thing why I call it the most memorable of my experience is, it brought out some qualities in me which I didn't know I had. The moral and physical courage which I had. The level-headedness of handling any situation. Afterwards my DGM even gave me a letter of appreciation, and I won't forget this incident in my life. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Uma Somasundar. I want to share an experience with you, and this experience I'm sure some of us have gone through in this class, and every one of us will go through definitely sometime one day in life. I'm talking about the experience which I had when I got my first paycheck. Receiving a paycheck, believe me, it's a golden moment in your life. It gives you a sense of power. You have money, you have power, and you feel right on top of the world. I remember the day very well. It was June 13th, 1992. It was last year actually. I worked part-time for a summertime job. It was a very bright, sunny, nice, fine morning. It always is on a paycheck day, I guess. And it was exhilarating. The check said 1,000 rupees, and I went deliriously happy I was. And I just went gaga, finished. So all my colleagues and myself, we decided to go freak out, have a bash. We went for his lunch in his really outlandish Hawaiian restaurant opened up in Hyderabad recently, and it's called the Kontiki, and we had really vague stuff to eat, and I had lobster, and I had crab soup, and I had rice and served in bamboos and whatnot. Believe me, it was really funny. After that, what I did was, we sobered down a bit, we went shopping. I got lots and lots of things for my family, for myself, odds and ends, nicks and knacks, you name it, and we had it. I got my sister a pair of shoes she wanted for a long time, and this was from my money. That felt good. And then I got my mom lots of flowers. I got my dad some things. But the best part of the whole day was that I was spending money which was my own money. And I think for the first time in my life, I was spending money with more care. And what I really want to share with you is that moment when you get the paycheck is like there's one slip of paper which says paid to Uma Somasundaram, 1,000 rupees. You realize you're independent, you're mature, you have to take care of yourself now, and you are the mistress of your destiny from now on. And that paycheck made me realize the value of money. Every rupee that went out on that shopping spree, I realized the value of the money. And it was a very memorable day for my dad, because ever since I spent my dad's money more carefully too.
My name is Avin. It was the year 1978. I was 6 years of age. My sister was just a baby. It was vacation time for me. And that year, like any other year, we went to Madras to spend vacation time. The first fortnight, we spent the time in Madras. Then we, that is my two uncles, my aunt, my parents, my grandparents, my sister and I decided to go to Erode and then onwards to Guruvayur. So we caught the train at Madras, and it reached Erode at about 9 o'clock. By the time we reached Erode, we were all very thirsty and tired. So my father, he went to fetch water in a bottle, and I followed him. But to this fact he was not aware of. So I followed him gradually, but suddenly I found that I had lost him. Whatever happened afterwards, I know not, but only learned from others. My father came back after filling the bottle with water, and my mother inquired about me. When my father replied in the negative, my mother got panicky. There was general tension all around. They didn't know what to do. It was then that my grandmother, a woman with great presence of mind, acted. She started calling out my name loudly. It had, as she would say later, a dual purpose. One was that a very remote chance of my hearing her and responding. Another was that somebody in the crowd could possibly have known about this and might help them in this purpose. And what actually happened was something to this effect. A person came up to my grandma and asked what the matter was. He was dressed in a spotlessly clean shirt and vesti. My grandma told about the problem. So at that time he answered that he had seen a man along with a boy in a particular compartment. My grandma immediately rushed to the compartment and started searching for me. So she looked at me and immediately grabbed at me and came out of the train. The next instant the train got off. The train started moving and the train was bound for Bangalore. So then there was general relief all around, and my grandma turned to thank the person who had given this information. He was not there at all. To this day, my grandma believes that it was Lord Guruvayurappa. We had initially planned to go to Guruvayur. It was Lord Guruvayurappa himself who had come in his form, and in his form to help us in this hour of need. Even as I think of it, a shiver runs down my spine. And this incident, it is instances such as these which strengthen your innate belief in the Supreme Being, the omnipotent, the omnipresent, the omniscient, and the merciful God. Thank you.
I am C. Venugopal. I am going to speak about some memorable incidents in my life. Different people have different memorable incidents some point in their lives. These pertain to various aspects like academic achievements, career advancements, recovery from sicknesses, or meeting a future life partner at some point in their lives. Mine, dear friends, pertains to academics. You must have all heard of the IITs, Indian Institute of Technology, premier engineering institutes in India. These are internationally recognized both at undergraduate level as well as the PG level for research at international caliber. The entrance to this examination is through a tough nationwide examination in physics, chemistry and mathematics, and 10 plus 2 students appear for this examination as well as some BSc students also appear for this examination. I had the good fortune of writing this examination in May 1981. So the memorable day in my life was June the 1st, 1981 that year. Then the results were to be announced officially on June 2nd. I had a hunch that the results will be put up on the notice board on the evening of June 1st. So I decided to go to Andheri, the IIT, and check up whether my results had come. So I went to Andheri, took the 396 bus to IIT main gate. I walked the 1.5 kilometer long road to flanked on the other side with vegetation, trees and a nice metal road, and reached the main building. On the ground floor, I asked someone whether the results had been put up and where they were. They told me motioned the first floor. I had been to this place 2 or 3 times before. I am familiar with it. Clambered up the steps, approached the notice board with bated breath, palpably nervous. Then I reached the notice board. I ran through the range of numbers where my number would be. I skipped over it. I went over it once. It was not there. Then my number was not there. I was dumbfounded. After all this 1 year of work, it must have been gone waste or something. And it was a dream to go into IIT. And something told me I must have skipped in my haste I must have skipped some numbers. So something told me to check again. I did so twice, it was not there. Still I tried again. It was suddenly time stood still, something exploded in my head and my number 14066 was there. Then I stood there for a long time, utterly in disbelief that I had been selected for IIT. See, until something becomes true, everything remains a fantasy. So I could not contain my joy at that time. So I began a journey back home, dreary, and the dreary journey looked dreary, weary, and full in high spirits. I was eager to reach home. As soon as I reached home, I told my mother. She was ecstatic, spellbound, and she immediately set out to making a good dinner. Then I went and met my friend and told him about the news. He was very appreciative. Then I told him that you can go back to IIT and check whether he had been selected or not. So he agreed and we went. But unfortunately, he had not been selected and he was very downcast on the way home. When I reached home, my father had already arrived and was making plans for celebrations. The next few days saw a flurry of activity. So this is the most memorable incident in my life.
Hello, I'm Vijay Jacob. The incident which I'm going to relate to you happened around when I was around 5 to 6 years. My kid sister was around 4 years. We had just finished bathing. My mom had just finished bathing me and my kid sister, and we had put on our good clothes and we were going out for a walk. I had 50 paise on me. 50 paise which I had earned, which my mom had given me as a reward for getting 8 out of 10 in my spelling test. So we walked to the corner shop and I was planning to buy a couple of lollies and walk back. And that day we had our brand new rubber slippers on. So as we were walking, my sisters lost a balance and slipped into a puddle. She was very upset that her brand new rubber slipper was dirty. So we looked around for some water to clean her rubber slippers. We found that there was a harmless looking water tank nearby. So she went there, she dipped her leg and she lost her balance and she fell again into the water tank. Being the born hero that I am, I jumped in behind her to rescue her. But there was only one hitch. It wasn't a harmless looking water tank. It was a well without a rim, and I didn't know swimming. So I didn't know what happened after that. It was very hazy. I was going down and the water was murky green and it tasted lousy. But one thing I remember, we were going down slowly, one solid pair of hands just pulling us out. I was blacking out, but I remember this grip, the iron wise grip. He pulled us out and within seconds we were out. I cleared my head. I looked around to find my sis. Impulsively I was looking around for my sis. I looked, she was okay. She was waiting for me to get up and she was very impatient to get back home. We got back home. My mom took one look at us. She gave us a solid spanking, no questions asked. Later when we told her our story, there was an overdose of love, affection and sympathy. I still don't know to whom that wonderful pair of hands belonged to. But I hope and pray that he did this world of ours a big favor. Thank you.
This is what actually happened the first time I went on a stage many years ago. I was 13 years young then, a very timid and reserved person, with few interests and an introvert by nature. My knees were knocking, my voice was lost, and in short, I was dumb. Needless to say, the debate was difficult. I left the stage in tears, absolutely terrified with the turn of events. It was only when a very concerned voice said, "Relax, there's always a first time. It's not the end of the world. Don't worry," that I could actually compose myself. The voice was that of my teacher, Miss Ramona Quadra. Taking you back a few years before, I was 12 years when my father was transferred from Madras to Calcutta. New surroundings, new school, and this new school overawed me. I felt completely out of place. When Miss Quadra stepped out, she looked at me with a sneer and said, "Who are you?" I said, "Ma'am, I'm new. I'm to class 7. She looked at me again and then said, "Class 7? That's my class. But son, you better grow up." I guess I look very young. She used to call me Anand. as if she wanted to chew my name. I don't know why. And I tell you one thing, she was in real terror. She did not mince her words, nor did she refrain from using her hand. She was well versed in both of them. She was a person who called a spade a spade. She was short, around 5 feet. She was not fat, just healthily plump. And she was pretty dark. But she had one great personality. One day she told me, "Anand, you have to take part in a debate for your house." I suppose all of you know that schools have houses. And I was terrified. Believe it or not, friends, I was a person who hated to be at the center stage. The only time I had been on stage before was in a drama. I had the role of a tree, but I refused to go into the stage. So in effect, there was poor me, and there was this horrible Miss Quadra. I cried, really cried. I ran to my mother. She was very nice to me. She gave me a patient hearing. She wrote a letter to Miss Quadra. To tell you the truth, I felt really thrilled. I was overjoyed. I thought I'd done a great job to convince my mother. I was happy, I was thrilled. When the letter reached Miss Quadra, she was very thrilled. In short, the message from the letter was, "Go ahead, make my day." Debate day came, and as you know, I did everything else except debate. In fact, as I told you before, I was in a position to tell you the number of fans and tube lights in the auditorium. After a couple of days, Miss Quadra came up and said, "Anand, there's an elocution competition within a month's time. I wish you'd take part." Now she was a lady who had her wishes come true. It was her wish, it was my command. Rather, it was her command. As if automatically, tears followed, tantrums had no bounds, curses had no limitations. But the fact was, I still remained in the elocution competition. Everyone's heard of T.S. Eliot, I suppose. And because of T.S. Eliot, I know where T.S. Eliot came from. I had to say a piece of his, Rum Tum Tugger. With constant training, cajoling, and occasional bursts, to say the least, Miss Quadra prepared me for the elocution competition. I used to stay back after classes, missing my lunch. We had a session of 8 to 1. She used to make me sit back after class from 1:30 to 4 to sacrifice my lunch, and I had to prepare myself really hard. D-Day came, and the jitters started again. Participant by participant finished their piece. My turn came nearer. Then the voice of the address system said, "Vijayana," and there I was, actually reciting what I had learned. A little later, the results were announced, and believe it or not, friends, I came first. And as if on cue, Miss Quadra came up and said, "Anand, I told you so." I moved from elocution to debate to dramatics and so on. I moved from school to inter-school competitions. I moved from collegiate to intercollegiate competitions, all because of one lady, Miss Ramona Quadra. I left that school way back in 1984. And after 9 long eventful years, when I went back last March to Calcutta, I made it a point to visit her. When I asked her, "Ma'am, do you remember me?" all she said was, "Son, how can I forget my Rum Tum Tugger?"
Hello, I'm Vikas. Today there's been a good mention about aircraft, but my experience with them is a little nervous combined with humor. Memories may fade. Well, it's human tendency to forget. But some of the incidents leave such a deep impression on our minds that it seems it was yesterday when Calcutta was yawning, the sun was hiding behind the clouds because it was a misty winter morning. There was no briskness in the atmosphere, except for the roadside tea stalls who were doing brisk business. The atmosphere was totally new to me, even inside the building. I had never been inside such a building before. There was hustling, bustling. It was a busy morning in that building only. There were people all over the place. I was told to stand in a queue, and before I could realize what was happening, I was at the counter, asking the person at the counter, "Window seat please." Well, I hope someone of you has guessed, it was my first flight, my maiden flight experience. Well, I couldn't understand the jargon at the airport. It said security check, boarding pass, check-in and whatnots. I was just standing there dumb. I got my boarding pass, a card sort of a thing. And again I stood aside. I didn't know what's next. What do I do next? Where do I go next? I was standing there for 45 minutes knowing what to do, knowing not. Then there was a voice over the microphone saying, Mr. Vikas Kemka, please come and identify your luggage. Well, that was the end of all. Where was my luggage? I didn't know where was my luggage. I was alone there. Anyway, someone guided me to the place where I had to identify my luggage. Then it took me another half an hour to reach the aircraft. The aircraft was delayed half an hour only because of me. I didn't know what to do, where to go, and I was alone. I was around 14 years old. Throughout the night, I had visions of what would the world look beneath me. Well, it was bad. I mean, there were clouds all over the place. I could see nothing. Inside the aircraft, it took me another 15 minutes to locate my seat because I didn't know how the seating arrangement was. Well, there was a plastic smile of the air hostess saying a namaskar and the stuff. I was told I'll be served a sumptuous breakfast. It was an early morning flight. No, there was no breakfast. There was just some tea served in a cheap plastic glass, and that was it. No chocolates, no newspaper, and nothing what I expected. The whole night I was dreaming about it. Well, I hadn't even looked around properly. I was traveling from Calcutta to Ranchi. I didn't know the duration of the flight. It was just 25 minutes. And before I had even looked around, talked to my co-passenger, looked at the air hostess, or looked at the signs around, there was an announcement by the captain. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we land at Ranchi. Oh, that was the end. I mean, that was the end of the ordeal. A 25-minute ordeal. I hadn't even looked around. What is an aircraft like? I just looked out the window, there were clouds. Okay, that's over. That concept was over. And then there were signs saying all over the place. I didn't know how to get out of the aircraft. That was another problem. I walked here, I walked there, and then okay, I found the door. That was not the door. I had to go to the other door to get out of the aircraft. Well, friends, we all may have experiences, and for me, and the first flight was an experience. For some of us, it may not be so memorable because some of us may be traveling quite often. For some of us, it might be a distant dream. Whatever it is, it was really memorable for me.
Hello, I am Vineet. A memorable event for me is one which really has an impact on your life, which makes a lot. And one such incident that happened in my life occurred when I was in second year BSc Chemistry. We had an inorganic practicals that day in which we had to weigh chemical and then perform titrations or experiment on that. I managed to enter the lab just when the teacher was preparing the weight sample. An idea struck me, why not use the teacher sample? Why do all this tedious job of weighing the sample? Just as the teacher went out, I took the teacher's sample, did the experiment, finished it early, and went to the teacher. The best part was that when the teacher asked me how did you manage to finish it so early, I told him exactly what I had done. It was like a reaction. I think the teacher reacted as if I had poured hot acid on him. He shouted at me, threw my file away. He dragged me to his room, asked me to write everything on a paper. He dragged me to the corridor, called all his colleagues, and it was like the whole college was flocking around, seeing a drama going on. I was the center of attraction. I didn't know what to do. They were shouting at me. It was like I didn't know what to do. I thought it's all over, but they didn't let me go. They made me do the practical all over again. I had to be in the college till 5:30. All my classmates went off, but I was there still doing the practical, literally in tears. Then I thought I'll apologize, but apologizing didn't help. 3 days later, my father got a letter to meet the teacher. He was called. A thrashing for my father was given. I got a bad thrashing from my father, and then I realized a serious outlook in life is necessary.
all of us here, or maybe some of us here, sometime or other in our life must have had close experience with death. I had mine too. It was a long time back. It was in 1981. I was in 6th standard and I was wearing my new trouser that day. A trouser which I always wanted. A trouser which I got after a lot of begging and pleading from my mom. Anyway, I wore this new trouser and I went to the sailing club in Hyderabad. Now the club is right next to one of the most dirtiest lakes in the world. A lake so polluted, I wouldn't be surprised if I put my finger into it, my finger wouldn't be there. So anyway, I went there and I was very happy. I was wearing my new trouser and I was telling everybody this is new, mine is new, and I was a kid that time. I was 11 years old. So then suddenly we decided that we'll go sailing. Now sailing is not that usual row boat which we have. It's a sailing boat, which movement is on the wind, moves the wind. And when we sail in that boat, we are 6 people sail in that boat, and the balance has to be maintained in a very delicate manner. And one wrong move here and there, entire boat capsizes. So we were told by the boatman, now listen, you have to sit very carefully, sit quietly, don't make any noise, don't make any mistake. I said, yeah, okay, I nodded my head, and I told my sister who was with me, be careful. And there were other 2 girls along with us, my father's friend's daughters. They also said. So my father decided to accompany us. So all of us went. And we started off well, we were very windy, it was really very windy, and the boat was moving along nicely. And the boatman then suddenly instructed my father to change sides. He was sitting opposite to my father. My father, okay, and before he went there, but before the boatman could come to the other side, the boat capsized. Now all this took place in just a few seconds, maybe 3 or 4 seconds. And before I could know what was happening, I was in the most polluted waters in the world. Now polluted, well, it has zinc, it has chlorine, it has cow dung also. So, and I forgot everything. I was in a total panic. Where was I? What was happening? Anyway, I came up, we had a life jackets on, and that time I was very thin. I was really underweight by around 10 kgs. So, and I was floating on the water, and the wind was pushing me away to the other side. I was being drifted away. I drifted back to around 2 or 3 meters when the boatman swam up to me and pulled me back towards the capsized boat. He made us sit on top of the boat. And in the meantime, the big crowd had gathered, and it was a big road, the big bund, and it's a big long road. Road is around 1.5 km. And only a big crowd, and only 3 people managed to jump. And the rest of them just said, oh, what fun, So all the 3 people jumped, and they helped us up to the sit on the capsized boat. And meanwhile, the rescue boat also came, and it also capsized. So finally, after a big experience, all of us managed to swim ashore safely, and my new trouser was wet. So I wept a lot, and I really prayed a lot. I had no trouser to wear. I had to wear that nylon shorts. I really hated wearing nylon shorts because people used to pull it down. So I had to wear it, but the funniest part I think about it was the next day's papers. The next day's papers mentioned that 6 women had gone out for boat ride. Thank you.
I'm Anand Somaya. I'm here to take you down memory lane once again to a time when I was 7 years old and my sister 9. A time of fighting, of bullying each other, of teasing each other, of pulling each other's hair, and of growing up. Now, since we were growing kids, our mother insisted that we had this awful tasting drink called egg flip for breakfast every day. This was this huge concoction of raw eggs and milk, which is supposed to make us healthy and strong adults. It was only later that we realized that it was more out of convenience than anything else that our mother made us go through this daily torture, because it was so easy and quick to make. Now the worst thing was that my sister, who was 9 years old, had graduated from this daily dosage to a weekly one. She had to have it only on Fridays, but I had to have it every day. So I was stuck with this dual horror of having egg flip and facing the sadism of my sister, who took great pleasure in reminding me every day that I had to drink egg flip. And she ensured that I drank it, ruling out any excuses that I gave to my mother about a stomach ache or feeling of dizziness that I tried so persistently and desperately every day. Well, anyway, then came this eventful Friday. It was my sister's school day, so she had to wear this special white uniform. So she had tried this uniform around a dozen times before, and she had got it washed and pressed and was all ready for this day. So when this day came, she came all dressed up with her polished shoes and this white uniform. But then school day or no school day, she had to have a Friday flip. So then as she was gulping it down and was towards the end of the drink, I don't know, something came over me and I leaned over and whispered in her ear, "There's vomit in your milk." For a moment, there was no reaction. Then whoosh, the entire thing came out and it was an entire mess all over her dress. Now this was the most memorable day for me because I was locked up in the bathroom for nearly half an hour and I was blown up by my parents the whole day. But I feel it was a good thing because at least I was one up over my sister. Thank you.